5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Houston with a drive. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve, and Trevor.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Steve Schill with the ever lovely Trevor Struthers. The news of the off-season in sports, I don't know what it is, but it's exciting, and especially this year, the NBA, the NHL, everybody's flip-flopping teams. We are seeing a mass amount of trades, signings. We're going to go over some of them, but let's get things started. I guess we'll start with the Bulls. We know that they traded Jimmy Butler. We talked about it last week, but now they're waiving Rajon Rondo, which Rajon Rondo, Jimmy Butler, and Dwayne Wade, which they signed last year in the offseason, were what they would call their big three, per se. Now, Dwayne Wade's left, and he's still under contract. What do the Bulls do with Dwayne Wade, or does Dwayne Wade try to get a trade somewhere? Maybe to the Knicks? Do you think the Knicks and Carmelo would try to do something there, or do you think Carmelo's going to try to get out of there?
I could see that definitely, Carmelo wanting to get out of there. But, with Dwayne Wade, there's really no point in Chicago holding on to him because it seems like they're obviously moving towards some sort of rebuilding kind of phase here. And so he's basically meaningless. Now, I don't know what kind of value this guy would have on the market. That's always the thing with a lot of these older players, even though he's a big name, he's essentially a diminishing asset. And so because of that, that's obviously going to affect his value and what you can get back in trade. So maybe it's better to hold on to him. Let's keep in mind as well, maybe Chicago, you're not exactly struggling selling tickets in a market like Chicago, but Dwayne Wade brings name value to this team that otherwise they wouldn't really have anybody with that name value if they were to move him. So, that's something that maybe could be considered.
Now, Golden State, they're re-signing Curry, Durant, Livingston, and Iguodala, trying to keep generally their core together. They're spending a lot of money to do so, but do you think as long as they keep their core together, they're going to be fine, or do you think they need to bring in somebody new?
Yeah, as long as they're able to sign these guys and there's a willingness to play there, they could have this team together for an incredibly long time. As long as you're willing to pay luxury taxes, yeah, they'll have no issue. And if they're winning championships every year, then yeah, they'll have no issue bringing these guys back year after year. So just looking at Steph Curry's contract, he's making over $1 a second or something is something that I came across, which is ridiculous to even think about. Some of the money in the NBA is insane. We could even talk about what Kyle Lowry got with the Raptors and that whole situation, which I'm sure we're getting into. But as long as you have it, there is no hard salary cap, and you're willing to pay those luxury taxes, then you're gold.
Now, we'll get to the Raptors just after this next one. The big, blockbuster trade, if you will, was the Oklahoma City Thunder getting a little something for their MVP, Russell Westbrook. Picking up Paul George. Definitely didn't see this one coming. They swapped Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis for Mr. Paul George. And, I guess the Oklahoma City Thunder can run a big two?
I guess, but it's do you still even really consider them on the same level of a San Antonio, let alone a Golden State? And that's ultimately what this is going to come down to. They need to still try to add another piece somewhere to try to make this thing go. With that being said, Russell Westbrook was the best player, obviously, in the league this past season. The issue, though, there is, can he keep that up going into the next season? Because at some point you get to the issue where it's sure, you had, a fantastic season, arguably one of the best of all time. Can you keep that up moving forward and make because, that's obviously the hardest thing to do, is to keep that consistency at that high level. That's something that they'll need from Russell Westbrook. Paul George, no doubt, makes this team a better team, but they still kind of need that third piece, that third wheel. When we talk about great teams in the NBA, we talk about a big three, not necessarily a big two that are able to get the job done. So they still need another piece if they want to have any hope at kind of making a run for the finals.
I'm a liar, because we'll get to the Raptors thing in just a second. One more thing to mention was Paul Millsap has signed with the Denver Nuggets, which, again, with the whole Paul George going over there, now Paul Millsap, These players are switching over to the West. So this is making the East look, arguably it was already easier before, and now it just seems it's getting easier and easier. So with that being said, the Raptors retained both Serge Ibaka and Kyle Lowry. But do you think that Kyle Lowry wanted to come back, or do you think he's like, hey, you know what, the East is even progressed? Because this was one of the later signings. Was it, hey, let's realize, like the East is weaker, we're going to have a shot, there's less of a spotlight put on us, in a sense, because it's, we're going to at least make the playoffs, you would hope, and then go from there.
I think there's definitely a willingness to come back for Kyle Lowry. It does seem like his play aside and everything, and the fans' take on his play aside, it seems like for the most part it's been a pretty good fit. And, you see the bromance at times with DeMar and Kyle and all of that. So I think there was definitely a bit of a willingness on his part. With that being said, you do kind of wonder where was the interest around the rest of the league for a guy like Kyle Lowry. And I think there was some. I mean, he got a pretty hefty contract from the Raptors, so maybe they were just the top bidder, and ultimately that was right decision, obviously, to take the money.
So Timberwolves definitely with a new look. They gave up Ricky Rubio. Utah Jazz picking him up for a protected first-round pick in 2018. But the problem with the Utah Jazz is they need to re-sign Gordon Hayward, who's talking with the Celtics, amongst other teams. So we'll see what happens in that regard. Another big trade that happened was Chris Paul. Definitely didn't see this one coming either. A lot of unsurety with this one, I think, more than the other trades. So the Rockets gave up Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Sam Decker, Montrezl Harrell, Darren Hillard, DeAndre Liggins, Kyle Witcher, and a protected first-round pick next year and cash considerations. Trevor, do you think Chris Paul is worth this much?
That is a lot, and because of that, it'll be interesting to see how it affects the team next year in terms of, you lose some of that depth that you otherwise had. And it's not like Houston was a bad team next year, but obviously this is a move to try to put yourself over the top in a way and get a player that's sort of on – he's not necessarily a superstar in this league, but he's kind of on that lower tier just before being a superstar, where we know he's a really good player. He's well known around the league, but he's not like MVP level status. He has obviously a chance there to make quite the impact. James Harden, Chris Paul will be an incredible 1-2 combo there, but it's like it's also kind of very similar in ways to OKC as to do they have enough around those guys to get the job done when you're really considering the fact that you're battling in that same conference with a Golden State and with San Antonio, and they're going to be great in the regular season. I think that goes without saying. But once it comes playoff time and you get that big matchup, do you have the guys to get the job done? And with some of these players bouncing around the way they are, you're not really seeing the teams build up like a Golden State or a Cleveland has. And so, obviously at this point, it still seems like they are the two best teams in the NBA.
Chris Paul is great, but, you're picking up Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, forget the rest, just those two guys and a first-round pick. The Clippers, they were kind of having some issues this year, and, they ended up getting back DeAndre Jordan and whatnot, but I felt that this was one of the teams that needed a bit of a shakeup, and the Clippers, as well to mention, they did re-sign Blake Griffin. So, apart from Chris Paul, they're coming back. But do you think with this new look Clippers that they're going to, even contend in the West? Or is it the fact, hey, Oklahoma City just got, injected with steroids. The Timberwolves, they are leaping and bounding their rebuild stage here. If they're picking up Jimmy Butler and they're trying to make all these deals, the Timberwolves look good with the youngsters, and the whole West as an entirety, for the most part, looks pretty dominant. But do you think the Clippers kind of have enough right now, or are they going to try to do something else?
Well, really, it comes down to the fact that do Jordan and Griffin have the ability to step up their play to that next level? And so, we're going to find out this season, unless obviously something happens roster-wise beforehand where they don't necessarily need to. But right now, with the way it looks like they'll have to. And the West just seems to be getting tougher and tougher with teams on the rise. And with that happening and the Clippers maybe going in the wrong direction when it comes to, the like I said, not a superstar player, but kind of the tier just below that, losing a guy like that, how that is going to affect the team. Obviously, this is a guy here that could put up, 30 points in a game. Where are those points now going to come from? That's something that they'll have to figure out. And like I said, it'll come down to, can Jordan step his game up down low, and can Blake Griffin step his game up as well?
Switching over to hockey, Montreal Canadiens, two big things of the day. Radulov, one of their offensive heroes of the season, decided that he was going to take his talents to Dallas, and all this talk about, oh, he just wants that Russian money. Number one, it's American money that he's getting. Number two, you're probably not wrong, but the point is he made his return to the NHL, did well on deciding to take a payday on it. Before we get in the other Canadians news, what do you think of Radulov signing with the Stars?
Well, first off, I mean, any argument against the money and the player taking it, who wouldn't take that if it's offered to them at any point in time in their life, almost even regarding the circumstances? I think I'd take that money, right? It goes without saying. And yeah, I mean, this is Radulov doing the smart thing that a hockey player has the chance to do after having a tremendous year, and that's cash in, and that's exactly what he did. Can he continue the same sort of play in Dallas? It will be interesting because Montreal, we're not actually talking about a great offensive team at all. Even last year, Radulov was their leading scorer. This is a guy that, I'm sure he had a fantastic year, but he's not exactly a guy that should necessarily be leading your team in scoring. They're a team that struggled immensely to score last year. And going to Dallas, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he falls line-wise. But, I mean, down the middle, they're a pretty solid team considering it's, Tyler Seguin, Jason Spezza, and they got Hansel now as well. So they're pretty deep down, they're pretty deep in the middle there, and he'll obviously fit on a line with one of those guys, and he has a chance there that if a Jason Spezza or Tyler Seguin can set him up, he can cash him in.
So the other Canadian news, which probably everybody knows, Carey Price re-signing with them. Obviously, it's a priority for Montreal. He's arguably the best goaltender in the world at the current stage. Does Montreal have to really do anything else roster-wise? I mean, now you got Radulov gone. You've got your goaltender solidified. You have Shea Weber, so you have, your Erik Karlsson, if you will, of Montreal, which I don't know why, but I feel like Erik Karlsson's better than Shea Weber, but I don't know if that's just an age thing. But with all that being said, do you think that Montreal's going to try to pick anybody up?
Well, first off, Erik Karlsson is a lot better than Shea Weber at this stage of the game, but they also play two completely different games in a way where Karlsson is, his offense isn't built around his shot and how hard it is, whereas Shea Weber, that's his bread and butter. So that's the breakdown there. Now, when it comes to Carey Price, I mean, really, this is the reason Montreal has been successful over all of this time for the most part. I mean, they've struggled to score for how long now? So bringing him back for a long time, it's a win no matter how much you're paying, no matter how long the contract is. You'll eventually probably try to find a way out of it. A lot of these big market teams are able to do that. Now, beyond that, have they done enough? Offensively, I mean, like I said, this is a team that has always struggled to score these last few years. Last year was the same sort of thing. They lose Radulov, they get Drouin, so it's nice that they had Drouin and everything, but you lose your leading scorer from last year, and it's almost like you're replacing the guy. You're not adding to that offense, and that's something that is Jonathan Drouin going to be able to go out there? He's still a pretty young player. Like, he is, definitely young 20s. He's got to be like 22, 23. Like, do you expect him to go out there and light it up in a big market like Montreal? It's going to be almost impossible, I feel like, in your first year. When you go from Tampa Bay to Montreal, that media difference that you're going to have to deal with amongst with the fans and just being in a different place. And let's not forget, Tampa Bay is a team, too, that's has some pretty strong offensive players that Montreal just doesn't have. So at this point here, if this is the team they're putting on the ice up front, who knows what Galchenyuk's going to be like, Gallagher as well. I don't know if this is a team that can score really at all still, and this is something they have to figure out if they really want to make a push for that Stanley Cup.
So, last thing here on this BSS episode, Joe Thornton staying with his bearded buddy Brent Burns in San Jose, but Patrick Marleau, the San Jose Big Three, if you will, in the hockey world, decides to sign with the Leafs on a 3-year term. And the conversation now switches to, is the rebuild being injected with steroids, as I said earlier, because, you're taking a guy who's older, so sure, veteran leadership, but paying a fair amount of money for him, and you'd think the goal this year is make it in the playoffs and maybe a few rounds into it?
That is what this signing obviously means, is that this is a team that will try to make the playoffs and see how far they get and go from there. And given the year they just came off of where they made the playoffs, it's not surprising at all. I think this was the step that they wanted for this year, was to try to make the playoffs for the first time in this rebuild. But since they did it last year, now it puts pressure on the front office to, how can we make this team better? and take that next step, maybe try to get into a second round, a third round. I mean, with Ottawa getting into the third round last year, it does make teams around the league, I'm sure, feel like it allows them, it's like, hey, if we were in that spot, would we have been able to get that far? And, how do we make sure we're in the right, that we have the right pieces to do so if we're in that spot next year to try to get that close to a Stanley Cup, just like Ottawa was maybe able to take advantage of a couple of things that went their way in terms of matchups and all of that. And so beyond that as well, I mean, this is a signing that I like for the first year, definitely. This is a guy that is getting older, but he still seems to be able to contribute. And, I mean, you put him on a line with, and I'll be interested to see how it comes down, but if you throw him on a line with a Matthews, that could be very dangerous, and he could find the back of the net, and he could score 30, 35 goals potentially. But then there's also the backside of this, and it's like what I mentioned before with Dwayne Wade and a declining asset. I mean, he's getting older, which means usually you're not getting better, you're getting worse, you're slowing down, and that's where the back end of this contract comes in with that third year and maybe the second year. And, I mean, really how he does in this first year is going to be a huge factor in deciding what they're going to do with years 2 and 3.
That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at BSS Sports. Archiving all of our works on YouTube at BSS Productions. For Trevor, Struthers, and myself, Stephen Schill, we'll catch you next Monday instead of this Tuesday, which is a one-off. But hope you had a fantastic Canada Day.